This is the Straight Truth Podcast, biblical answers to difficult questions from a Christian worldview. Pastor, how do we understand Paul's command in 1 Thessalonians 5:16 to rejoice always when I'm going through suffering? And I know that God is the one who has ordained this suffering for me. Thinking Romans 8:28. That he's working all things together for our good. So I am going through suffering, dealing with this, and yet Paul commands us to rejoice always, every circumstance. How do we understand that?
Yeah, we understand that by, one, acknowledging that believers can have more than one emotion operating in their hearts at the same time. The Word of God even acknowledges this, that I think about the first letter to the Thessalonians, where thinking about our future with Christ allows those believers to grieve, but not to grieve as those who have no hope. Mm. So there you can have genuine grief over the death of loved ones, but it's a grief different from a lost person because you have the hope of future resurrection. So grief but hope, grief but joy. So the first thing I would want God's people to understand is just because you're sad about something or discouraged about something doesn't mean that you're sinning. However, where sin would enter the picture is if I'm experiencing those emotions and refusing to rejoice at the same time. And the way that you rejoice at the same time is to bring into your mind and heart the truth that God has revealed about whatever it is that you're battling that would give you gladness of heart if you would embrace that additional perspective. So I'm sad that my dad died, but I have the truth that God has revealed because he knew Christ about where he is right now with Christ. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. I know that's true of him. And I think about a future resurrection day, a great reunion day. So I'm not sinning to be sad that he died. But now if I refuse the truth about where he is and about what our future is so that I just live in that sadness, but I don't embrace the joy, the gladness of heart that belongs to that additional truth, then I would be sinning. So I'm called to live my life in faith, by faith in the Son of God, which means bringing God's truth into the picture, whatever the circumstance is that I'm facing. You mentioned one there in Romans 8, knowing that God is at work, causing all things to work together for good to those who love him, to those who are the called according to his purpose. Knowing that we've been predestined to be conformed to the image of God's Son, that everything we're walking through has a developmental purpose in mind. I need to bring that into my mind, no matter what it is that I'm going through that grieves me or discourages me or could weary me. I need to bring that additional perspective, the perspective found in faith, the perspective found in truth, into the picture, and then I'm called to embrace it. And that's what it means to rejoice always, that I'm always embracing the perspective that God has given us in his word for all the troubles of life, for all the difficulties and trials that I face. That's why the book of James says to count it all joy when you encounter trials of various kinds, multicolored trials. Knowing this, he says, that the trying of your faith produces steadfastness, and steadfastness has all these benefits that James goes on to list. That's the additional information that I have to bring into the picture, regardless of what it is that I'm battling. Mm.
So you've given a whole lot of active ways in the midst of the trials to be rejoicing always. How do we prepare for it, to rejoice in those circumstances?
By knowing the Scriptures. It's the only way. Obviously I'm speaking to believers, so I've got to know the Lord to be able to have access to this. But then I've got to be learning the Scriptures, knowing the truth, and then living my life by faith. So I don't just know the truth, I'm called to believe it, and I'm called to practice it. And it's by believing the truth and practicing the truth that then I derive the benefits of the truth. And in fact, the Lord, allows our trials and regulates our trials because he doesn't allow us to go through things we're not ready for. He hasn't equipped us for. So he allows us to go through trials to test our spiritual muscles, to get us to the place where the genuineness of our faith is on display by what we're facing in life. And so I can't prepare for what is 10 years down the road except to prepare by believing God today. And as I do that day by day by day by day. What the Lord ordained and is known from all eternity, He has me walking through 10 years from now. I was actually preparing for that 10 years ago, if I'm in the Lord, by knowing His truth, believing His truth, walking in His truth. Then I meet with that circumstance, and He's prepared me for it. So that's the only way that we really get ready for these things, is by believing God right now in our present circumstances. And then it prepares us for all that He has in store for our future.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Straight Truth Podcast. Now, Straight Truth is listener supported. So if you'd like to find out ways how you can help us to continue to produce this podcast, you can go to our website and find out ways to do that, straighttruth.net. At that website, you'll also find links to all of our previous episodes and our social media channels, so be sure to check it out. Straight Truth is a production of Walking in Grace Ministries, the preaching and teaching ministry of Pastor Richard Caldwell. For more information, go to walkingingrace.org.